Good afternoon. I'm Jennifer Easley, President of Texas PTA. I'm honored to be with you at this important event. On behalf of the Texas PTA Board of Directors and State Office, I want to welcome you to Texas PTA Straight Talk 24, Navigating the Smartphone Era. Thank you for taking the time to join us. We want to take a moment to say hello to the many PTA members joining us virtually throughout the state. Welcome to those who gathered together at one of our 40 watch parties hosted by our outstanding local and council PTAs, from here in Austin up to Denton, Katy to Lubbock, Corpus, and Fort Worth, and everywhere in between. Welcome also to our dedicated volunteers and supporters tuning in from your desks, your cars, and your homes. Let us know in the comments which communities you are representing. We are grateful for your passion and commitment to becoming more knowledgeable on this critical issue. We've seen enough to know that the digital age has unlocked a wealth of knowledge, entertainment, and convenience. It has allowed our children to be connected, even through months of lockdown and physical distancing, on a level unparalleled by any previous generation. But ever-present screens and digital access have also introduced a bevy of complications for our children's development and well-being. We're struggling to stay ahead of mental health concerns, online safety, and easier access to explicit content, even harmful drugs via social media. You may have seen headlines recently about tech CEOs testifying on Capitol Hill about this very subject, and we, like the senators in the hearing, have a lot of questions about how we're supposed to keep our kids safe online. Our generation of parents is building the roadmap as we're navigating this uncharted territory, which is why I'm so glad this amazing group of expert panelists has joined us here today to support us on this journey. But first, we have a very special message from National PTA President Yvonne Johnson, after which Vice President of Advocacy Rachel Abel will introduce our panel.
Hello, everyone. I am Yvonne Johnson, your National PTA President. Thank you, Texas PTA, for inviting me to participate in this event. PTA is committed to equipping families with the tools they need to best support their children. This event today is so timely and needed as it supports real issues facing our children and families. National PTA has been helping school communities address these with our PTA Connected and Healthy Minds initiatives. Through PTA Connected, we are focused on connecting families with tools to help them navigate the digital world and have proactive, open, and ongoing conversations with their children to help build good digital habits and to keep them safe online. Healthy Minds is all about sharing valuable resources and support for PTA leaders and families to help make mental health an everyday priority for every child. As we look at the issues facing our children, we are now at the intersection of technology use and youth mental health and well-being, something the U.S. Surgeon General recently highlighted as an area of concern. Parents, families, and caregivers need our support as they evaluate their families' online habits and review online safety tips and best practices. PTA is here to help and bring all of us together to keep children safe in the ever-evolving digital world. Thank you for taking the time to be here today, and thank you for your commitment to improving the lives of every child here in Texas. Learning about online safety together and having proactive, open, and ongoing conversations with our kids will help create a kinder, more inclusive online community for everyone.
Thank you, Yvonne and Jennifer. I'm Rachel Abel, Vice President of Advocacy for Texas PTA. As a mother of 4 children, ages 9 to 19, I understand the challenges that come with parenting in the smartphone era. I'm right there in the trenches with you and look forward to learning some new things today. Reflecting back, it's incredible how quickly technology evolves from one child to the next. I think back to giving my 2 older kiddos iPhones in elementary school, an easy decision a decade ago when no one had heard of TikTok or Snapchat. Now, with my younger 2, it's a different landscape with more research and studies, so their phone access looks much different. Know better, do better, right? But this I do know. Advocacy for healthy digital habits and online safety starts at home. It extends to our local campuses and grows to make us more informed, compassionate advocates for district-wide policies all the way to the statewide and national legislation. If you haven't already, I'd encourage you to sign the Texas PTA Digital and Cell Phone Safety Pledge. It's our rally to support around creating a safer digital world for students and families across Texas, and to urge our legislators to do the same and protect our children. As you hopefully know, our collective voice has a thunderous effect here at the Capitol, so we're excited to add all of your names to our efforts. Now, to the reason we're all here. I am honored to introduce our top-notch panel of experts, after which they'll share a few words about themselves and their respective areas of expertise. Unfortunately, Laura Tierney is sick and was unable to join us today, but we're so grateful to have an equally fabulous panelist filling in her shoes. Sitting to my right is Jennifer Wagner. She is Round Rock ISD's new Director of Behavioral Health Services. With more than 20 years of experience in mental health and human services, she is dedicated to student well-being and brings a wealth of mental health experience from outpatient, inpatient, and residential settings. Jennifer has extensive patient experience dealing with substance use, addiction, mood disorders, trauma, grief, and behavioral issues. She holds an undergraduate degree in psychology from the University of Texas at Austin and a master's in social work from Fordham University. Next, we have Titania Jordan, Mother, Chief Marketing, and Chief Parent Officer of Bark Technologies, a digital safety company. She is a leading voice on digital parenting and author of Parenting in a Tech World. Titania has contributed to publications like the Wall Street Journal and Forbes, and is a sought-after expert on national TV shows, recently featured in the documentary Childhood 2.0. In 2017, she founded a Facebook group for parents now with more than 300,000 members. Titania is a strong advocate for online safety and parenting in the ever-evolving digital landscape. Joining us next from the Metroplex is Tabitha Branham, Richardson ISD's 20th superintendent, and brings 25 years of educational leadership to her district. In her former roles as assistant superintendent and deputy superintendent, she spearheaded curriculum, instruction, and a district-wide strategic plan. Prior to that, Tabitha was a teacher and a school leader, co-designing New Tech High School in Coppell. She is a skilled presenter and grant writer, co-authoring Digital Learning, Meeting the Challenges and Embracing the Opportunities for Teachers. In 2022, Tabitha earned the National PTA Lifetime Achievement Award, reflecting her dedication to public education. And rounding out our panel, I'm happy to introduce our student panelist, Marvin Ruiz Martinez. Marvin is a senior at Robert Turner College and Career High School in Pearland ISD, just south of Houston. He belongs to the unique generation of digital natives where Snapchat and smartphones are part of their coming-of-age story. He has experienced the ups and downs of technology that can both connect and isolate him from his peers. To that end, Marvin is active in his school's CATS Care program, which works to help students care for their mental health. He is also active in National Honor Society, Academic Decathlon, Speech and Debate, and hopes to study computer science this fall at Duke University as a first-generation college student. Welcome again to all of our panelists, and thank you so much for joining us today. I would love for each of you to take a couple of minutes and tell us a little bit about your experience or passion around digital safety and some of the issues facing our families and schools today. Jennifer, why don't you start off and we'll just go down the row.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here among these amazing presenters. And as you had mentioned, I've spent most of my career, actually all of my career, in the mental health field. Prior to coming to Round Rock ISD, I served as clinical director for a program that treated intensive mental health issues in addition to addiction, and we had a specialized track for technology addiction. And what we saw there were young people who came in with severe depression, very severe social anxiety as a result, and really very disconnected from just authentic human relationships. Once they got through the initial kind of, as you would describe in any addiction, a withdrawal period, once they started to connect with their peers and go outside, spend some time in nature, and really get to some of those other kinds of issues, which really had to do with connection and learning how to talk about your feelings and be with other people. This was on the heels of the pandemic, so most of the kids didn't have much of a choice at that time but to be online. So thus the loneliness and depression epidemic among our youth right now. I would say that the biggest takeaway for parents, and I'm a parent as well of older teenagers, is really to be able to connect the amount of time your kids spend on social media with depression and anxiety. There's clear research now that shows the more time you spend on social media, the higher the rate of depression and anxiety. And of course, it doesn't happen if you just are a sort of regular user checking on, what's happening with your friends. It's when you get into that constant kind of scrolling day in and day out, no more time with friends or peers or participating in hobbies. So thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Jennifer. Titania?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me here. It truly is an honor to be on this panel. As you have heard, I'm Titania Jordan. I'm the Chief Parenting Officer and CMO at Bark Technologies, and I'm also the mom of a 15-year-old. And I have made every single mistake when it comes to parenting in a tech world. And so part of my mission is to help other parents not make those same mistakes. And I'm so thankful because of our work at Bark, we're able to have some pretty critical insights that most people are not privy to because the social media companies nor the big tech companies making those things public. So right now, we help to protect close to 7 million children across the nation. And just to give you an example of how dire things are, every single day at Bark, we are sending out between 85 and 100 severe, imminent self-harm and suicidal ideation alerts to parents about their children every single day. Suicide is the second leading cause of death in children in the United States, and it's heartbreaking. We release a report every year based on the data that we are privy to. At Bark, we use artificial intelligence to connect to children's devices and accounts, social media, text, email, YouTube. We also have a free product that is free to any school in the nation that wants to use it to protect the school-issued devices and accounts. We have hardware that can go in every home to help with filtering and setting time limits. And then we also have a smartphone. We launched a safer smartphone for children a little over a year ago because iPhones are not safe for kids and are not easy for parents to manage. And we wanted children to be able to connect with each other in an easier, safer way and with their families. So given all of that, we released a report that analyzed more than 5.6 billion data points across text, email, social media, and over 30 apps and social media platforms. And here's what we found. The rate at which children were struggling with self-harm and suicidal content, sexual content, anxiety, drugs and alcohol-related content, bullying is through the roof, depression, disordered eating, predators and strangers, and violence is through the roof. I'll drop a link after the fact because going through all of this will take more time than I have, but it is something that every parent needs to be aware of, whether or not they use Bark. This is what is happening with children today, and we have got to do something about it. As parents, as educators, as administrators, as legislators, as pediatricians, we have to band together because we cannot rely on social media companies to do something about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Titania. Tabitha?
Well, first of all, thank you to the Texas PTA for assembling this amazing panelist and being willing to have this conversation. And I want to say hello to my PTA that I know is watching at home, and thank you for all of your support. As you mentioned, I'm the proud superintendent of Richardson ISD, where I consider myself to not only be a mom of 4 of my own children, but 37,000 students that ultimately I feel the absolute dedication and commitment to make sure that they come to school every day in an environment where they can learn, where they can grow, and where they can thrive. Our Board of Trustees adopted a North Star goal that is about ensuring every student, teacher, and leader meets or exceeds their growth goal. And in order to do that, to have at least a year's worth of growth, students need to have conversations with one another. Students need to have meaningful conversations with their teachers in their classrooms. Making meaning of the content and the knowledge and the skills that are happening in the classroom. The phone is not the number one tool that our students should be leaning on. And as our previous panelists mentioned, on the heels of the pandemic, our students became so committed to the technology, not just for personal entertainment, but now it was a part of the school infrastructure. And when they returned to school, that level of isolation, even though they were in a room of 30, we were still seeing isolation even in a room of 30. Students were working in silos and they were not re-engaging. In our 21-22 school year, at the end of that school year, we did a climate survey. And one of the number one issues our teachers shared as a concern for them was how distracting the cell phone was for learning. And what it was taking away from the classroom environment. And I knew in that moment, as the superintendent, as the mom of 37,000 students, I couldn't read that. I couldn't listen to our teachers' voices and not do something about it. And I made the bold recommendation to our Board of Trustees, while we had a cell phone policy that had been in existence for years. If you walked around our buildings, you could see cell phones everywhere, and it was not a policy that we were readily enacting, and nor did we have tools to provide to our principals in this new landscape after the pandemic. And so as a result of that work, we refreshed that policy. We provided a myriad of tools for our secondary campuses, and we really committed to being an environment where technology was still valued, because it does play an important role in this in the digital learning environment. But that cell phones and the distraction of all of those social medias were not going to be the number one thing that our students were thinking about when they walked in and when they left. And I'm so looking forward to sharing what now we are seeing as the results and how our students are engaging with one another and their teachers in such different ways. And it's been a powerful learning experience for our entire district.
Thank you, Tabitha. Marvin?
Hello, I hope we're all having a good day. I am really grateful for the opportunity to be here. I am Marvin Ruiz Martinez, a senior and early graduate at Robert Turner College and Career High School. Now, growing up in the generation of smartphones, I have experienced both the highs and lows that technology has to offer. It is very versatile, which often leads to kids being distracted, and definitely from their responsibilities and definitely from the real world. However, it's also a tool that schools can utilize, and is especially an outlet for socialization. This event would not have been possible without the use of virtual communication, aka email. Now, my experience with a smartphone started around 5th grade when I struck a deal with my parents that basically I would earn a phone under the conditions that I paid for it myself. And from that point forward, my cell phone addiction kicked in, and I have spent the past few years trying to manage it in healthy ways. In this year's Straight Talk, I hope to not only discuss the positives and negatives of technology, but explain the experiences from teachers and students as well. Thank you.
Thank you, each of you, for lending us your insight and expertise. We'd like to delve in a little deeper now and get into some of the questions our PTA leaders from around the state sent in over the past few weeks. Following this segment, we'll take questions submitted by our live audience. So those of you watching by Zoom or Facebook Live, please drop your questions into the chat or comments section and we'll get them over to our panelists. Now, to Tanya, I'd like to start with you. Are there recommended age limits for children to start using smartphones and social media? And what are the potential risks of early exposure?
This is the question of the time, right? First and foremost, I would say delay is the way. I have never heard a parent say, I wish I would have given my child access sooner. Not once. Conversely, I have heard way too many parents say, I wish I would have waited. I really wish I could go back and make a different choice. That said, we know the pressure is mounting. Families want their children to fit in, and it's the new way that we're embracing connecting with each other digitally. So it's not going away. So a few things. One is, please don't let your child have social media before the age of 13, minimum. I would advocate for later, potentially 16, but it really depends on your child's emotional state, their mental health, their physical health. Do not let your child have any app that you yourself have not spent time on. Don't let your child have Snapchat if you don't have Snapchat, and if you don't know that there's something in it called Snap Maps that can show your child's live location to anyone they're connected to if they're not in ghost mode. That's like dropping your kid off at an international airport alone at age 11. You wouldn't do that. Don't do that with our digital landscape. So delay is the way. Spend time on the platforms that they want to spend time on before they get there, and then spend time with them there, whether it's Snapchat or Roblox or Minecraft or an iPhone or an Android tablet. Be where they are and learn with them and grow with them. Children are naturally curious, which is amazing, right? And tech is a tool. It's neither good nor bad. But being alongside of them with that digital journey is a critical part of helping them to become a responsible digital native and helping you stay in the know. Now, this next part of the question, it sometimes can be awkward for me to answer because I am with a for-profit company that has a smartphone that we make for children. And we've had that for about a little over a year now. Before we had that smartphone, I would say delay, 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 because the smartphone options out there were not great. They weren't safe for kids, and they were not easy for parents to manage. With the Bark phone, which was built by a dad of two, Brandon Hilkert, shout out to you, thank you. Parents really do now have control. If you want your child to have access to tech, a smartphone that you can just text and that's it, and not have apps, and not have a browser, and not communicate with anybody, you have that option. So if you make a smart choice and research the options that you have at your disposal to make the tech that you give your child safer, you can navigate it. But you have to be in the know, you have to be prepared, you have to do your research, but delay is the way.
Tanya, thank you. Jennifer, this next question is for you. It's so difficult to gauge how much screen time is too much, and at what point does it become a problem? Can you talk about the signs of social media addiction in children, and how can parents address and prevent it?
Sure, thank you. Not all screen time is the same, as we know. So if a child is doing something educational versus something that is more sort of on social media that may or may not be positive, those are two different kinds of things to look at. But in terms of signs of addiction or overuse, you would really track it the same way you track any addiction. First of all, we know that social media is built to be addictive. We know that's public information, public knowledge. I think that the researchers built it that way. So to know that as a parent is really important, that whatever time they are on social media, they're in that loop of sort of that dopamine feedback and getting those feel-good neurotransmitters as they engage, which causes them want to engage more. So I would say if you're noticing your child increasing their time spent on social media, that it's increasing over time, they're decreasing their time with family and friends, and becoming more anxious about leaving home, about having face-to-face interaction, about making eye contact. Decreased time spent doing enjoyable activities such as hobbies, sports, or spending time in nature. Also, when you start to ask your child to get off of their gaming platform or off of social media, you will notice more emotional outbursts, and those can vary in intensity. It can be extremely serious to pull some children off of, for example, gaming if they have become addicted, and thus we have treatment. So if you want to tell your child, okay, I want you to just stop altogether, and that's what they've been doing for most of their time, I would say do that in phases, because what has happened is that they have replaced human connection with social media. They've replaced friendship with influencers. So their social media influencers are their primary relationships. And so when you take that away, their sense of connection, although it's a false sense of connection, is removed, and they don't have anything to replace it with yet. So I think that in terms of what we can do as parents, parental controls, as she was speaking about, making sure that either they don't have their phone at night when they go to bed, or that you have some way of turning it off. You can monitor how long your kids spend on each application, on each platform. I will say this, that if they are struggling, many of them are searching specific platforms to see what's wrong with them. And what happens then is, am I depressed? We all know algorithms, so once they start searching that, then they're going to be shown material that is likely about worse and worse and worse depression, potentially self-harm, and that has a way of reinforcing and worsening the problem that they were beginning with. So as a parent, when you see your child and you think, I wish they wouldn't spend so much time in their room, and what they're doing is scrolling social media, please go in and say, hey, let's go do something else. They may have resistance, they may not like that, but really we need to get them out of their rooms and engaged in some way, whether it's with us playing games. I know I'm a parent, we're busy, but engage them, sign them up for something. If you have to look for free activities, go for a hike, see what they can do to break away from the algorithms and from the addictive nature of social media, and really monitor the time that they're spending on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Tabitha, I'd like to come to you next. In your experience, how can schools strike a balance between leveraging technology for educational purposes and minimizing distractions in the classroom caused by excessive smartphone use in the classrooms?
Well, thank you for this question. I think this is really a question that all educational leaders are asking right now. In our curriculum in the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills, there are technology TEKs. Even our state assessment is now anchored in all grade levels and all subjects in technology. And we do have a responsibility to ensure that our students do learn the behaviors that are positive behaviors when using technology, and begin to see technology not just as a tool for entertainment or for that connection of social media, but for the efficiency use, for the creativity and the ability to create things that maybe you couldn't create without the use of technology. And so in 2016, Richardson ISD, we did implement a one-to-one device where every student had a school-issued device. And a big part of that work was ensuring that we had the platforms that would allow our students to navigate and use that device in a way that was safe, that our teachers could monitor where our students were going, that when we were having a meaningful discussion, they could lock down those computers, and so that students wouldn't be distracted by the Chromebook and really just focus on that learning. That one-to-one environment really set us up well when we did have to move into the pandemic, and every student was forced to learn using technology on a day-to-day basis. On the heels of the pandemic, then it came back to the big question of how do we balance? Because again,
it really is important that our teachers understood that that technology device is addictive and that it can be, if you're not really thoughtful about how you are going to design your instruction, if you're not creating engaging, relevant, meaningful activities every single day, that technology might be a bigger draw than what's happening in your classroom. And so with our learning framework this year, we have really focused on creating that sense of discovery, inquiry, collaboration, our students reflecting on their learning, finding that relevancy, so that if they're engaged and if they are really excited about what they're learning, that draw to that technology is not going to be as strong. And then you couple that with our cell phone free policy. That we provide you with a technology device. If you need to research, if you need to create something that you can't do with that pen and paper, we have a safe place for you to go and access. And your smartphone device, that can be a part of what you do when you're at home with your parents.
Thank you, Tabitha. And I feel that's a great segue into our next question. Marvin, could you talk to us about how the use of cell phones for social and educational purposes affects you in the classroom?
Yes. Well, kids are definitely distracted. As much as I hate to be rude, it does get kind of annoying. And looking at the reactions of some of my teachers, they seem to think so too. Being in high school, almost everyone has access to a smartphone, which leads to large groups of kids misusing it and not paying attention in class, missing out on lessons. But a lot of people I asked about mentioned that a lot of students started to lack social skills. They miss out on a bunch of social cues such as facial expressions, body language, and tone of voice, all key parts of a normal human interaction. However, we can't discount the positives. A teacher at my school pointed out that especially after COVID, schools started to use more technology into their curriculum. Apps such as what my school uses, Skyward, which allows parents and students to look at their grades, fill out forms online, and even look at their attendance record and a little bit more than that. And then apps like my clubs like to use Remind and Ban as ways to send reminders and important details to students' phones. The same teacher pointed out that even websites such as Quizlet, Quizzes, and Kahoot exist, which act as a form of quiz questions, flashcards, and even fun games for students to participate in. So while there are definitely negatives to technology, a lot of schools almost need them. It's almost a necessity. Thank you.
Marvin, thank you. Jennifer, if I can come back to you. We know this is a topic that can easily pit parent and child against each other, resulting in secrecy. How can parents and caregivers build an open dialogue around smartphone use, safety, addiction, etc.?
That's a great question. I often encourage parents to really act more with curiosity with their kids when they want to engage on this topic. It's a great starting point. So if you don't know what they're doing on their phone or you don't know really what they're doing online, start to enter into their world a little bit that way. Show me what games you're playing. Just set aside time actually to sit next to them and see what games they're playing, just to kind of really, you're entering their world, and I think they will like that, but also you're assessing what are they doing and what kind of impact is this having on them. The other thing I would encourage is not only to look how long they're on social media, but who do you like to follow? Just that curiosity and just inquisitiveness, even though you may be concerned, but just to show the curiosity, and that's a way of sort of not alienating them to begin with. And then they will tell you, I think they'll tell you who they follow, unless it's really, something that they're trying to hide. But then you can start following those people that your kids follow and really look to see what influence these influencers are having on your children. And then you can decide, is this a concern? Go back, say, look, I went back and I listened some to this influencer, and I'm kind of worried. I'm kind of worried about how this might make you feel, and a good litmus test is, how do you feel after you have listened to this influencer? How does that make you feel? Do you feel better or worse? And you might hear something, not so good, pretty much the same, or maybe worse. And if you want to try to encourage your kids to find people, if they're going to be online, find influencers that are positive and have healthy ideas and suggestions, and they are out there. You still want to limit their time, but it's really a matter of redirecting the concept we've used so much with kids. Redirect to different influencers. Tell them why you're concerned. Tell them, I'm worried about you. Look at them in the eye and tell them, because they will hear that you're worried. But if you are angry, and if you come across that, they need to be punished or they're doing something wrong, they might be, but they're not going to hear you. They will hear you if they hear concern and worry. And let's see what we can do about this together.
Good points. Thank you, Jennifer. In that same vein, we want to ensure we as parents are being supportive of healthy digital habits and good partners with our schools. Tabitha, what are some successful policies and practices schools have adopted to curb cell phone disruptions at school, and how can parents support these practices?
Well, as I've mentioned, we're in our second year of a journey around really reestablishing our cell phone free policy that we've had in place for a long time, but really enforced it in a different way. And after listening to teachers, we ask our teachers to do a lot. Every day, their responsibility of addressing the social emotional needs of our students, as well as the academic pressures that come with it. And one of the things that our teachers asked of us is, please enforce a cell phone free policy, but give us tools so that it's not one more thing that we have to do. We don't want to get into a situation where we're trying to force a student off their phone and it becomes a classroom management or discipline issue. We want to create a safe environment. And so we've really implemented systems, and we've provided a variety of systems for our principals to choose from, because every campus is different and the needs of every campus are different. So we have this year 5 of our secondary campuses are implementing a pouch solution. It's called Yonder, and it's very similar to sometimes when you go to a concert or a comedy show and you put that cell phone in a pouch and you lock it away, and it just provides a structure. So the teachers know, the administrators know, the students know what the expectation is. And I'll just share at the end of our first year in our climate survey, and I really want this to resonate with everyone who's listening. Our teachers said that they felt like they retrieved 10 to 15 minutes of instructional time every class period, knowing that those cell phone that they had a cell phone free classroom. Those cell phones weren't a distraction. They weren't asking students, get off your cell phones. It was focused on learning. And for me, every instructional minute counts. And we're about every child every day in Richardson ISD. And so just implementing simple tools and strategies and communicating that expectation. And to parents, my ask would be that while we know, as a mom, I have a 9-year-old and I have a senior in high school, and I want to be able to connect with them at all times during the day. I want to know that they're safe. I want to know that they're okay. I want to know that if they were prepared for, studying for a test, that stress is okay and that they came out the other side okay. And I just want to help parents realize that even in a cell phone free environment, there are old ways that you can connect. You can send an email to your student. That's why we have a one-to-one device. If you need to pick up your student, you can still call the front office and you can access your student. And so I just ask our parents to trust the process, and that in the end we have systems in place that will ensure their student is in a safe environment.
Thank you for sharing what's going on in Richardson. To Tanya, this question is for you. What options are available to give my kids some access without giving them the entirety of the internet and social media?
So full disclosure, I'm using my smartphone to make sure I stay under time here because tech is a tool. Okay, so resources for parents. Whether your children have Apple devices or Google devices, they come with free built-in screen time and parental controls. So there's Google Family Link for Google devices, and there's Apple Screen Time for Apple devices. Please, please use the built-in tools that come with any tech that your child accesses. Make sure that they, as mentioned, are not connected overnight. They have got to sleep. If they do not get enough sleep, they do not grow and they do not thrive in school, and their mental and physical health is affected. Your internet service provider, the smart TVs that come into your home, the Roblox that they play, all of those digital points of connection that they have, most of them have the ability to have that time managed. So manage that screen time, and there's a lot of free tools at your disposal. If and when it comes time for your child to have their own device, please research safer smartphone options. You don't have to use the Bark phone. I think you should, but obviously I'm biased. But please don't let your first choice be to give them an iPhone, even if it's a hand-me-down iPhone. Apple does not prioritize child safety. Apple prioritizes adult privacy. It's so important that you do the research before you give your child access to anything, so that you know what you're dealing with. When you send them to school, if they do have a device, make sure that you have set those screen time limits, filter limits, blocked access to apps and browsers and that sort of thing, because there's so much disruption that comes from children accessing social media on campus. It's not just the distraction factor where they're not able to pay attention in class, it's the bullying. The bullying is off the charts. Even in younger grades, children that don't even have their own devices, they come home, they use a family iPad, they get on these text threads, in second and third grade. And children whose frontal lobes are not fully formed until they're in their early 20s don't have full control over their reasoning, right? Their impulse control. They don't realize that the things that they are typing to each other, the emojis they are using, the memes they are using, can hurt, and that hurt can last a lifetime. And so even though your child might not even have a smartphone yet, you've got to be in control of the tech that they can access. Do you have an old tech drawer laying around with old devices that haven't been charged in years? Children can find a way, and they can get online. So it can feel like a game of whack-a-mole, but we have got to remain in control of that time.
Thank you. Lastly, Marvin, I'd like to come back to you, and then we'll go to Jennifer, who has a few excellent questions from our audience members. Marvin, growing up in a world, especially through COVID, where it's so easy for students to talk, play video games, and share things digitally, even when sitting right next to each other, what do you and your peers do to foster in-person relationships?
All right, thank you. So fostering in-person relationships is definitely different for everyone. A lot of students, of course, like to go out and plan gatherings. I personally love to go to the movies and hang out with my two friends over there, which does actually involve technology now that I think about it. But it's something we do to foster in-person relationships. Extracurriculars are a good thing to get into. I'm in a few clubs myself and have a unique friend group in each one that I'm in. These, I believe, are especially important because of how much easier it is to form these relationships online, even if you do know each other in the real world. There is someone I do know personally who I've known for about 3 years now. We currently sit next to each other at lunch, and we've always had classes with each other every school year. However, 90% of our conversations have been through text. To add to that, we have texted before while standing right next to each other. And this isn't the only time we've done it. It has happened more than once. I believe it's really easy to form these types of interactions because of how safe technology can be. It definitely gives you, when you text someone, a lot of time to think about what you're saying. And if you do get into consequences such as arguments, it's easy to protect yourself because the screen is there, which also does lead to cyberbullying. It feels weird to admit online or live, but sometimes when I do find myself getting to text arguments, I sometimes like to just turn off my phone to not stress myself over the situation. Thank you.
Well, what a fantastic discussion. I know this subject has been a source of a lot of stress among parents, students, and school staff alike. And I can tell our PTA leaders will be walking away with some great resources at their disposal. We have time for just a few questions. The first one is directed to Jennifer. Smartphones and kid-to-kid chats have become a bigger thing with elementary age kids. In your opinion, what is the recommended age for these types of device, and what are your thoughts on how teachers can deal with this type of technology?
I really like the answers that some of my fellow presenters have given on that. In terms of ages, I have recommended the same thing in terms of delaying smartphones, delaying this as long as possible. And I like the idea of finding an alternative to the iPhone where they are not able to just have free reign and free access to the internet. So, and I will defer to my fellow presenters in terms of the educational questions. So,
Tabitha, you have a comment on that? It was what are your thoughts on how teachers can deal with like the watch technology that kids are using right now?
I think we heard from our teachers in Richardson ISD that they needed help. Again, they are asked in terms of classroom management to enforce so many expectations that they needed support in creating a system that would not force them to get into that one-to-one battle. And so I think as school leaders, that's when we are called upon to sometimes fill in that gap and provide that support that our teachers say that they need from us. And then I think also having very honest and transparent conversations with parents about the why. While we initially had some challenges from some of our community and pushback, I think once I really just was authentic in here's what we're trying to accomplish, here's my why. I love our kids and I want them to be in an environment where they are creating meaningful relationships with one another and that they are engaging with their teacher, and that we are going to have tools that are in place for them that are safe. Our parents really did understand that. And so I think for teachers, I would say if you are not getting that support, lean in and have that conversation with your principal, have that conversation with your central office. They may not be aware of just how much instructional time and how much pressure you are feeling trying to manage that on your own.
Great information. Thank you very much. All right, to Tanya, the next question is for you. How can parents differentiate between just smartphones and smartphones with social media access? And does the smartphone alone have the same negative effects if kids don't have social media access?
Great question. Any tech, not just smartphone, but any tech that can access the internet and has the capability for a chat function or to share media like photos and videos can become a portal to a form of social media. And so it is important for parents and caregivers not to just hand over unprotected tech. Before you give your child anything that can power on and has access to the internet, just go to Google. Google is your friend. Google the name of that device plus parental controls and figure out what you can do to make it safer. Handing your child a safer smartphone that can only text mom and dad and 911 and not access social media, not access a browser, is going to be, I'd say, a powerful tool for them. Maybe give you all a sense of peace of mind and not become a distraction to their schooling or negative impact to their mental health. So it really is about the tech that you choose and the parental controls that you implement ahead of time. It's responsible parenting. We don't send our kids to the beach without sunscreen. We don't put them in cars without seatbelts. We can't just hand them unfettered access to tech.
Great, thank you very much. All right, Marvin, we're back to you. What would you tell the parents of students to help them raise students who have a healthy relationship with their cell phones?
To raise a healthy relationship with your cell phones, I would suggest that phones should not always be taken away. Now, there is cyberbullying, which I can't disagree with. If your kid is cyberbullying, you probably should take away their cell phones. However, a lot of activities stem from cell phones. My smartphone, I like to read, scroll through articles, news articles especially, and I'm trying to learn to speak Japanese. If I lose access to my phone, I also lose access to these activities and would therefore have not much else to do because I spend so much time with my smartphone. I recall an incident in 4th grade when I went to a winter trip in Colorado. My father was recording a video of me climbing this little part of a mountain and sliding down it. However, that led to an argument because in the video I told him to mira los árboles, which means look at the trees. However, he wasn't listening and just kept on recording. My mother got very mad at this, so I would also suggest that parents should mirror the relationships they want their kids to have, because a lot of times they're also addicted to their cell phones. And this causes them to not be in the moment because they want to show good videos to others. Thank you.
Wow, that was a powerful answer. Good job. All right, Tabitha, if you could answer this one briefly, I think we can squeeze in one more after this. So 5th grade seems to be when the majority of the class has smartphones. How can PTA better educate parents on different device types and how to more effectively manage tech as a family, which spills over to the campus when they bring their phones to school every day?
Well, I would encourage, we have amazing organizations like PTA and the fact that we're having this conversation. And so I think just like our students, we need to have the conversation not just once at the beginning of the year, but it needs to be an ongoing conversation. And I think having availability of information so that our parents can access that, they can become educated, and they can make the decision that is best for their family. I know we're at least having that conversation in Richardson ISD, and whether or not every parent, and I can tell you not every student, supports our cell phone free policy, but we're having the conversation, and I think it's leading to meaningful decision making by our parents. And so I would just encourage our PTAs, other parent organizations as a district, every district, to continue to publish information, be willing to have the conversation, acknowledge that we may not always get it right, but we're at least taking steps forward to create a healthy environment for all.
Great answer. Thank you. All right, Jennifer, we're back to you. One more final question, and we just have a couple minutes. One of the benefits of online gathering spaces is for kids of all ages to find other kids they can connect with, whether due to similar interests, hobbies, or appearances. How can we balance these social benefits and those connections with the negative attributes, including mental health struggles associated?
Yeah, I know of a couple of platforms where, a lot of kids tend to gather, and I would say if you really don't know the kids that you're meeting up with online, it's as a parent, it's probably something to be concerned about and to take interest in. I'm sure that our BARC professional here could tell us that there are a lot of people that pretend to be children in forums like that. So I would be careful with that. If there are groups I know that are set up for example, a study group for a specific class, the class members, and you can show up to talk about that specific subject and exchange ideas or help each other out with some tutoring or homework assistance. I would really recommend that that your kids know the people that they are in these groups with, because they will make friends if they are feeling lonely or if they don't have other connections outside of their online friendships and relationships. They will further make friends with them, and it may or may not be positive. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Well, wow, what an invaluable hour spent together. I wish we could all pause life for just a couple hours and keep this fantastic discussion flowing. And I'm sure you all, like me, are leaving today with a new appreciation for just how critically important healthy digital habits and boundaries are, and a few steps we can take to help our children navigate this terrain at home and school. As Rachel mentioned earlier, we urge each of you to keep that momentum going and sign our Straight Talk Pledge. We're putting a QR code up on the screen and a link in the chat. We'll be taking that pledge with all of its signers around to our state and national legislators next month, and we'll remind them our thunderous voice needs their power of the pen to create a safe digital world for our children. So please urge your whole household, your street, your campus to join PTA and sign the pledge today. Now, it wouldn't be a PTA event without a little sparkle and some membership talk, so panelists, get your pom-poms ready. Ahead of our event today, we challenged all of our PTAs to add 12 members to their ranks and earn the 12 by 12 by 12 award. We did this because we know our 435,000 members, including student members, amplify our advocacy voice. And we are excited to announce that through this award, more than 250 students all over Texas have joined PTA this month, learning the value of community involvement and gaining a seat at the table. We want to shout out to just a handful of these amazing student champions, and in no particular order, way to go on achieving the 12 by 12 award. That's Lake Ridge High School PTSA and Mansfield ISD, Billy Wright, PTSA from Denton, Claudia Taylor, Lady Bird Johnson, PTSA from Northeast, Bill Wright Elementary from Weatherford ISD, Dodd Elementary from Wiley ISD. So keep your phones handy, and at 3 p.m. we'll be going live on Facebook again to draw from our 12 by 12 by 12 award recipients and determine who will win a free launch registration, Starbucks, or Sonic drinks for your executive board. Well done, all of you. So remember, the real power in our thunderous voice is rooted in our collective membership, which is why we always talk about it. If you haven't already joined, please join PTA at joinpta.org. And okay, wherever you are, let's thank Jennifer, Tanya, Tabitha, and Marvin for making this event so meaningful. Yay. And thank you, Rachel, our fellow Texas PTA board members, advocacy volunteers across the state, especially those who hosted watch parties, and Texas PTA staff for all your hard work. Thank you to each of you for taking time out of your busy day to join us. We know that it will take all of us together to create a safer digital world for our children so that their potential becomes a reality.